everyone, and welcome to Call Your Hits, a Storm Riders Airsoft podcast. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Today is December 22nd, which is Patrick's birthday. Happy birthday, Patrick. Well, it's not actually the 22nd at time of recording, but it will be when you listen to this, so happy birthday.
So thank you for the birthday wishes, everyone.
So for your birthday, we thought, why not have an episode all about you? I'm going to ask you a lot of the burning questions that people on our Discord and people on our team had for you, and let's see how you fare. How does that sound?
I'm doomed. I mean, it sounds great,
so.
But it should be fun.
Awesome. All right, well, here we go. So the first question that I have for you is, what was the very first set of airsoft BDUs that you ever owned, and how long did they last / where are they now?
I'm pretty sure the first airsoft BDU I ever owned was actually a multicam bottom. And it definitely was repro. Probably bought from like the local Army Navy surplus. And I'm actually pretty sure that it is still out in my box of kit I'm not currently using, which is underneath the box of kit I am currently using. I'm a very organized human. Phil is laughing. I wore it for, definitely the first 3 or 4 years of playing. Usually not with a top because I just had the bottoms. But it worked pretty well, and I still enjoy it. I'm a little rounder than I was then, and we don't wear multicam as much as we used to, but definitely solid.
What did you move on to from that? Was it your the Woodlands that you're wearing now? You were one of the first ones on the team, if I remember correctly, to get on Woodland.
Largely because I was just in a really like 80s action movie kind of mood at the time, and I realized that I was like, oh man, I wonder if like how expensive Woodland is, and went online and was like, oh my god, it is so cheap. Like you can get surplus Woodland in any size you want, in anything you want, very, very cheaply still. And so it was definitely multicam pants and a black like Army's like Canadian Forces sweater.
Oh yeah, I'd forgotten that we used to wear those.
I wore that for a really long time, and then transitioned from that to putting on like getting the top for the multicam BDU and wearing the full multicam with the Cyraz, and then from there we probably I definitely went to Woodland. And I've now moved to, I guess, a bunch of olive drab parts and a bunch of miscellaneous camo that I pick from on day of.
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, like I know you and Cal were the first ones to pick up the Woodland BDUs, and then the rest of us just joined the party. But actually, this is a pretty good segue into the next question. Obviously, when we first started the team, like yourself and myself and Cal, we sort of were trying to do like the same thing, like wear the same gear, use the same kind of guns, more or less, all that kind of stuff. So related to that, what was the best thing about copying mine and Cal's style in the early days for you? And what was the worst thing about it?
So I think uncategorically the best thing was just that I didn't know anything about airsoft. I didn't know anything about guns. I had very little knowledge about militaria that was sort of post 1450 when we started doing this stuff, which left me really well equipped for combat with sword and chainmail, but not terribly well equipped for figuring stuff out for airsoft. So I definitely for the first while piggybacked on your knowledge of airsoft kit, and like when I started, as you know for sure, and as longtime listeners will, airsoft was much smaller and it was much harder to get gear, and the quality of what you could get was very, very wide. So you could buy a lot of brands that were absolute garbage. and a few brands that were pretty good, but differentiating between the two required a fair amount of work. So being able to just sort of go, okay, Phil's got a Scar, Phil's got a USP, I'll match those, I'll match the camo, was, I mean, fun in the sense that like, it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna match, it's gonna be rad. But it was very practical in the sense that it allowed us to get, it allowed me to get gear that I knew was going to be functional, and that I knew was going to do the things I needed it to, or that I thought at the time that I needed it to in some cases. The drawback is that there were definitely some pieces of kit that we both owned that were great, but there were some that were awful. Mm-hmm. I know we both ran EOTech replicas for quite a while, like, airsoft replica EOTech pattern 503s, I think.
I can't recall, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And they were terrible. Like, they're easily the worst sights I've used on an airsoft gun, like, as far as red dots have gone. And I don't have any real belief that you knew any better at the time either, but in retrospect, like, those were not so good. So the drawback would definitely be that, if there was something you thought was great, or Cal thought was great that actually wasn't, and that definitely did happen with a few pieces of gear, then I also bought it. And my lack of knowledge, I guess, and my lack of willingness to experiment relative to just going, they've got it, it must be good, was probably a hindrance in some ways, but on the whole, not to an extent that I would say was detrimental. I mean, I think really positively of my starting out airsoft career. There are parts of it that are really silly. But like, you guys, I think Karoo was sort of like more perhaps pro the P90 than you were.
Yeah.
But he was also much younger at the time, so whatever.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned in the past too how, in some respects too, because we were trying to match and stuff, that might have held you back from getting gear that would have been a better fit for you, or a better, more what's the word I'm looking for?
More like playstyle suited or body type
Yeah,
suited.
that would, exactly, right? Body type especially, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a much bigger guy than you are. Even in periods where I was less round than I am currently. I'm like 6'2" to your 5'3" or 4", 5'5".
Well, let's call it 5'6". Be
5'6".
generous.
All right, so I'm 6'2" to your 5'6". And I just realized as I was saying that I have absolutely no idea how tall you are other than shorter than me. Which was like, and Karoo was a skinny kid at the time, right? Like,
Yeah.
So there's a big difference there. And I think the Scar was a really good starting rifle in the sense that the G&G Scar, when we started out of the box, was very reliable. It did all the things we wanted it to do. Largely, it was actually a better piece of gear than what everyone else was running. So we had sort of some of the mechanical advantages that we now have to tune guns for simply on the grounds that our guns worked right. But yeah, I think that matching your kit definitely had some drawbacks. A longer barrel, longer range rifle would have worked better for me across a lot of my career, really, as an airsofter. Not that the Scar isn't fairly long, but I like M4 platforms in general. Unlike you, I also like the M14. Although that would have been a nuisance in terms of, I definitely think being able to swap our mags has been like a fantastic, fantastic thing across the entire period we've both played airsoft together, just because of what it allows in terms of troubleshooting and in terms of one of us running out of ammo and just swapping on the field is really, really excellent.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But I could have bought the M16 when I started instead of buying the Scar, and I think it would have served me really, really well as a starting rifle as well, had I been able to get a sort of a good one. That being said, I remember the first rifle I was like wanting to buy on Airsoft Canada was a really tacticooled up JG G36C.
Hmm.
And I've handled enough of those since then to be really grateful that I didn't buy that. So
Yeah,
like
really.
the Scar definitely talked me out of trouble, as well as, perhaps causing me a few pieces. I think the Cyraz was ultimately not a great choice, for either of us. But man, did we think we were baller at the time? So like, I'll take it.
Fair enough. Actually, but this is a good segue into the next question, which is Chaz asks this one. So if money were no object, and this extends to all accessories or upgrades or whatever, what airsoft gun would you want to use, and what would the build be like? Be as detailed as you want.
Man, so the answer to that varies a little bit depending on sort of how seriously you want me to answer it. Because like, if you just told me I could buy one airsoft gun and you'd foot the bill, honestly, I'd buy one of those silly $4,000 like classic army miniguns and a tripod mount to put it on, and
Okay.
just like bring it to the field and put it somewhere and make people sad periodically.
I think the intent of his question was really like
Something
building a
useful.
gun for use that you would use. Like that would be your main squeeze, so to speak.
For sure. I just wanted to get the minigun in. So yeah, if I were building like a primary rifle and I could buy anything to start from at the moment, honestly, the the VFC 416 series is really pretty. I like the 416 look, which is sort of a fashion soft answer, but I'm also pretty well aware at this point that I can build whatever I want to inside of the body, so who cares, right?
Hmm.
So the classic army VFC has a brand new 416A5, like the newest model of 416, that is really spiffy. And honestly, I think if I could do anything with it, I'd get two, and build one to sort of more or less match what's in Phil's rifle and what was in my AEG. So get a Spectre FET for it, tune up all of the air seal parts to the best quality of parts that I can get, put in a set of really nice, 13-to-1 gears, and just have that as an excellent AEG to use in those circumstances here where an AEG is preferable to the HPA kit. But I gotta say, I'm having still way too much fun with the HPA kit in my 416, or rather in my M27. And I think I might get, again, if you were, if someone else was footing the bill, or I end up with a lot more money than I currently have, I feel like I'd probably go for a Polar Star engine that does do full auto in it, so that I could have the option of having something other than semi. I think the Kyther is a great kit, and I love the price point it exists at because it doesn't have the electronic stuff.
Hmm.
But yeah, and then I'd just basically have functionally, two uppers ideally. So build one of the uppers to be slightly longer with a longer barrel, and then I'd be able to swap between the shorter gun and the longer gun based on what we were doing at a game, pretty much, and also between HPA and AEG, because I still think that having an AEG is more viable for like your longer term, kind of like if we were doing a 12-hour game outside. My experience with the HPA so far is that either I'd need a bigger tank or a second tank, or I'd want an AEG. And
Right.
I think that ultimately having the flexibility there would be really good. But in terms of internal parts, what's in Phil's gun is just where I want my AEG to be.
Fair enough.
Like I said, I definitely would enjoy playing with one of the fancier Polar Star kits that has the computer set up. It has, relative to the Kythera, some drawbacks because it needs a little battery and stuff like that. But I have considerable faith in my ability to figure that out and make it work fine, at this point. And yeah, they're just really cool. So that would be tops for me. I guess sort of related, like the next thing I plan on building once I have the spare money set aside is I am almost certainly going to put a Polar Star kit in the M249 that I have and just make that into a horrifying thing, because it amuses me to do so. um, I will admit Steph is trying to convince me to instead make the put a Polestar engine that does full auto into the IAR so that it is more accurate to what it's supposed to be. And that is a little tempting. So that could happen instead. But yeah, that is what I would hurl money at for airsoft gear. I'll add to that because I bought a real steel, not super high end, but like a real steel magnified optic for the IAR at the end of this season. And you could convince me to buy a real steel red dot now as well, because the quality jump from like $150 airsoft optic to $400 real steel optic is pretty good. It feels pretty good.
Yeah, I remember playing around with that one, and it's pretty sweet, no question.
And like I don't know if the red dot will have the same like jump in quality, but if I feel currently that my work situation and my financial situation means I can probably buy one dumb airsoft thing a year. And so that's a dumb airsoft thing that could be purchased in the future.
So we'll switch gears a little bit for the next question. So thinking about airsoft in particular, who is someone who you look up to in the world of airsoft and why? And this doesn't have to be someone local. It can be someone online, but it's just one person who you look up to. And why do you look up to that person?
I'll be honest. I think Chaz is super cool. Just from like chatting with him and working through tech stuff with him. He seems to really have the same mentality we do about it, where you're, helpful to other people who are new and trying to get their gear working for them, and just, going out there and being supportive and good for the community. So yeah, mad props to him. He seems like a wicked guy. My only regret is that he, lives so far away that my odds of traveling to play with him, especially in the current circumstances, seem a little limited, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
What can you do? And honestly, I got to give a huge shout out to Chris Lodge. He is ridiculously dedicated and motivated. Every time I see him, he seems to have found new stuff to talk to me about and educate me about and help me get better at the game with, and like, I don't mean anything like negative to any of the other players on our team, but like of all the guys on the team, he's definitely the one who is the most inclined to like force me to push past my preconceptions about what I can do, my ideas of how airsoft works. Like anything that is holding me back, he is very aggressively into questioning. And I think that is super good for my team. It's super good for all of us. And like, he's never, ever, ever shitty about airsoft. Like, he is always there to try it, there to play the game, there to have a good time. And like, I know I can be grumpy, so having a person who's super positive to like balance that out, other than yourself, is definitely really good.
Okay, that's a fair answer. I mean, I would certainly echo your comments as well. Is there one one time in particular that you can recall where you were interacting with Chris on the field and it sort of achieved what you were talking about?
I'll be honest with you. Half the games we play, he says to me like, "Pat, are you effective where you are?" And like for him, it's a thing he like says as he passes people. It's not critical feedback. It's just like, "Hey, think about this as I'm walking by shooting at someone." And some of the time the answer is like, "Yeah, absolutely." But regularly I'm like, honestly, no, I should be over there or pushed up further or both. And that's just really, really good. And also like anyone who gives me Skittles randomly in the middle of an airsoft game is my friend.
That's totally fair. To keep going on this sort of train of thought.
Yeah.
Thinking about the last year, so since your last birthday, what is it that you think you've learned about airsoft since in that time?
A whole bunch of things, honestly. I have relearned that it is a thing that I love doing enough to drag my carcass out of bed in the morning on a Saturday, which is a really like I know that sounds really daft, especially to a lot of our listeners, but like it's really easy to get into sort of a, oh, I've done a lot of airsoft. Like maybe I don't want to go as much as I used to. And the last year has just, as everyone knows, been exhausting for, COVID related reasons predominantly. But also, I'm a teacher and I'm in the first couple of years of like being a full-time teacher, and that's a very exhausting, draining thing. But remembering or relearning like how good getting out of the bed and like getting into it and just playing airsoft is for my mental health and like my mood, how fun it is has been really, really good. In terms of like play stuff, the tucking your stock back up over your shoulder to retract the rifle rather than like bringing it into like a high or a low position is both weirdly comfortable for like long-term carry, which is not a thing I expected, but also tremendously effective in terms of just making better use of cover on the field and making better use of the ability to move around. Right, it makes you just a lot more mobile and effective in that way. So those are both really, really big things. And the other one I would probably say is, I've definitely had a lot of fun playing with the HPA stuff, right? Like, I mean, I know anyone who's been listening for a while is going to be like, oh yeah, of course, pass back on the HPA. But I get a kick out of using it. It's really fun. It delivers a lot of performance metrics that I have worked really, really hard to generate in an AEG. And I won't say it does it better, but in very satisfying ways. And it does some stuff that you can't do with an AEG, right? I love how quiet it is. It's hilarious.
You just think they're neat.
Pretty much, yeah. And I think it's a side grade, right? Like I think that, as I sort of outlined with the, what would I build if I could build my ideal gun? Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, they're the same, right? There's not that much stark difference in what you get between the two pieces of kit that I can say, oh, one of these is really better than the other, barring, a couple of specific goals. But yeah, I just sort of, I guess in a lot of ways I had reached the point where I have a solution to most of the problems that gun teching a M4 style gun presents, and was happy with those. And so having something else to play around with has been really fun.
So, sticking with the birthday theme, I think this question comes from Jordan Glickman, and he asked me, if you could have one airsoft gift for your birthday, what would it be? And I kind of want to warp this question a little bit, because I'd also like you to tell us about the birthday gift that's sort of airsoft adjacent that you were given by your father, because I think that's hilarious.
Totally. So, I mean, if I could have, I'd be horrified if anyone actually bought me this, but one of those 416A5s would be swell, right? Like,
oh yeah,
that'd be a lot of fun,
okay.
right?
Yeah, that's more of a gift from Santa. Let's be honest.
Yeah, right. Or the other guy.
Yeah.
I'll sell a soul or two. In terms of like sensible like gifts that a person could reasonably expect to acquire from people for Christmas, I recently picked up, again, pretty much at the end of our effective season of play, a set of OD BDU trousers, and yeah, another like top to go with them would be rad. I'm not even really picky on what camouflage. I've definitely reached the point where, there are a bunch of camos that are really effective at frontline. That's predominantly where we're playing. But I also don't necessarily think that a camouflage that you're wearing to frontline has to be effective in order to be fun to play there. Also anything cool for my World War II kit for sure. And like really somewhere John is rolling his eyes at the idea of me buying a HPA kit for a gun when I still haven't bought the boots for that. So I guess that should be the practical priority when I have money for airsoft purchases next. But yeah, and the gift that you were alluding to. So my father bought me a OD boonie that I think he probably originally meant as a stocking stuffer. But he since then has had the absolutely amazing idea of scrimming it in a festive mean. So it is scrimmed with a set of LED lights with a battery pack that you can turn on, a bunch of fake poinsettia leaves which shed glitter in a startling radius around you if you turn your head,
It's amazing.
and some holly berries. I'll post a picture of it, of me wearing it, to the Discord later on this evening, just for hilarity. It's really really funny. I got home last night and he'd left it there for me, and I was just like, oh my god, this is wicked. His intent, I think, had been for me to wear it on my birthday, which was to be the last day of school for the year, or for the, well, I guess, yeah, for both this calendar year rather than school year, but for the holiday break. But due to COVID, we're shuttered early, at least for the students, and he wanted them to get to see it. So apparently he's been planning this for months. Like, my sister and my mother were both in on it, and we're like, oh my god, this is amazing. And he's been referring to it in email with them and conversation with them as my Christmas bonnet, which is
It's so
just
good.
friggin' delightful. And so today, as it turned out, was like wear your Christmas hat day to work. Like, that was what was scheduled for our like holiday cheer 12 days of Christmas thing before at school. And so I have this wicked picture of myself wearing that, and one of the other teachers, I would love to know where he got it. Got a roast turkey hat that is a stuffed roast turkey, like plush roast turkey, with animatronic legs. So when you like tap a thing on it, the legs wiggle. And we just like, we saw each other and was like, all right, yeah, pictures of us together today have to happen.
So funny.
And it's one of these funny things where like it's an airsoft adjacent gift, but I kind of want to keep it as it is and just like keep wearing it at Christmas to work, rather than wearing it to airsoft. Although admittedly, the idea of wearing it to an airsoft game in its current state is also pretty friggin' entertaining. Not that it would be terribly effective as camouflage, but like, just the looks on people's faces would probably be fairly minty.
Maybe if they do an Operation Santa game. You
Oh
can
my
wear it.
god. Yes, exactly. Just, it is on
So-
brand.
Yeah. So listen, we got two more questions. This next one is from our friend Shane in the United Kingdom. Shane asks, why do you hide your inner beauty behind a big manky beard?
Wow. Hateful. I mean, part of the answer is that the beard hides myriad terrible secrets, most of which are my chin, which is, a useful feature, right? And I will admit that, like, I should keep it probably more trimmed than I often do, especially at the moment. It's pretty shaggy right now. I've been meaning to either, well, to be honest, I was planning to go to the barber tomorrow or on my birthday and get it cut as sort of like a celebratory thing and get it trimmed and styled nicely. But the nature of COVID here currently means that probably won't be happening. So
Right.
it'll be me and my shit job again.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I like the beard. I enjoy it. It's
I like it too, and it's good. It's good BB protection. I mean, mine is very trim, but yours definitely you get a lot of absorption from.
Oh, totally.
From
And
the
like,
shot to the face.
I live in Newfoundland. It keeps my face warm in the winter. I can store food in it for later. For certain festive holidays, I decorate it, which is pretty rad. I've been known to put glitter in it, or for Halloween, I have a set of blinking purple LED lights shaped like bats that have been woven into it periodically and will be again. So yeah, I mean, it's I suppose fair that you could dislike it, but I'm a big fan. I definitely do have friends, especially a number of my female friends who are like, oh God, why? But none of them are single, so I don't care.
To be fair, I think Shane is just envious that he can't grow a beard like yours. So
That's
I mean,
fair. It is, my beard is
turnabout is
luscious
fair
and
play.
magnificent. Also, it just sort of goes with the aesthetic of random Viking that is apparently my current fashion approach. There are heavy quotation marks around fashion.
So the last question is again, it's more directly related to airsoft. What is the best airsoft game that you ever played?
Definitely the like first big operation game that you ran. both because like tromping around in the woods with our team for an entire day was just really fun. But it was super different. And I'm, I'm big into narrative in games, and you had that. So there was a narrative. It was very fun. It was different. It wasn't anything that I'd done before or expected, and it really stuck out. I think I'd also give a solid nod to, honestly, the game where we were staff in the village and just like caused havoc for the two teams that were playing for the entire day, being a really positive experience, again, just because it was super, super fun and silly, and I had a huge laugh.
When you think about that first game, what stands out to you? Like, is there anything in particular that jumps to your mind?
So it was, kind of the like, it was over a really large play area, so there was a lot of patrolling and a lot of tension, a lot of like, oh, I don't know where the other team is, I don't know what they're doing, and so playing for most of a day in a really like keyed up tense state, going, oh, I don't know if someone's going to jump out of the bushes, was really, really fun. But then also, like accomplishing objectives and going, oh man, like we have to get to this area in order to escape after we've accomplished our objectives, or we have to get to this area and figure out what Phil's put on the ground somewhere for our objective and try to find it. Where is the thing? Are we reading the map right? It was really rad, and like I said, it was just very very different from anything else that I'd done, and it still stands up as, I think, a really cool thing at the time, like just, but also still, like if you were to run one of those games again tomorrow, I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. Well, maybe not tomorrow, it's super cold out, but
Yeah, fair enough.
The whole my toes will fall off thing notwithstanding, it's pretty rad.
Well, listen, we're just about short of questions. So I hope you guys enjoyed listening to a little bit more about Pat. Pat, happy birthday, buddy! It's been many years since we've been friends, and I'm very, very glad to be able to keep playing airsoft with you and keep doing these podcasts. And I'm glad that everyone can sort of hear a little bit more about sort of your thoughts on this your birthday. So happy birthday, guys! Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, everybody. Have a fantastic week. Have a great Christmas or other holiday that you celebrate. Yule, I'm a big fan of. I'm sure you're all shocked. And yeah, we will talk to you guys soon. Cheers.
Happy holidays, everyone.